Well, there's new fallout today from what some political pros have called one of the most divisive and polarized presidential race in recent history. Remember back in 2008, Saddleback Church pastor Rick Warren held a sit-down with the presidential candidates then, John McCain and then Senator Barack Obama. It was such a success that Pastor Warren planned a similar forum this week between President Obama and Governor Romney. But yesterday, Warren announced it was canceled because, he said, he was concerned about the negative tone between these two camps in recent weeks. Here are some of the remarks from both sides that have drawn recent attention.
Either Mitt Romney, through his own words and his own signature, was misrepresenting his position at Bain to the SEC, which is a felony, or he was misrepresenting his position at Bain to the American people to avoid responsibility for some of the consequences of his investment.
Look, can you imagine how dumb this president is introducing the concept of felony into the discourse? When this president comes out of Chicago politics, where felony and politics are sometimes a synonym.
Romney wants to he said in the first 100 days, he's going to let the big banks once again write their own rules. Unchain Wall Street. They're going to put you all back in chains.
This is what an angry and desperate presidency looks like. So, Mr. President, take your campaign of division and anger and hate back to Chicago and let us get about rebuilding and reuniting America.
If you look at the overall trajectory of our campaign and the ads that I've approved and are produced by my campaign, you'll see that we point out sharp differences between the candidates, but we don't go out of bounds.
So is there any way to overcome this kind of vitriol, or is this the future of American politics? Here now, our focus group, a panel of voters, both Democrats and Republicans and independents. Panel, welcome back. Thank you. I mean, those clips tell the story of what we've been watching unfold in this country over recent weeks. And let me start with you on this, Kevin. Are both sides equal opportunity offenders?
No, and I think what's surprising people is that the Republicans have fought so hard this time. Normally, with the Clinton and the Obama campaigns in years past, you've seen kind of scorched earth philosophies from David Axelrod's and those types. This time, Republicans have gotten a little bit of spine behind them, and they said, we're going to push back and not just be steamrolled. And I think that's what's shocking
So you
people.
like those Romney comments where he said, take your hate back to Chicago?
I don't think they're inaccurate. I think he's saying it is a divisive campaign. And it's not anything like we're going to put you back in chains. The size of the rhetoric on both sides
Romney
is different.
took flack for saying, take your hate back to Chicago. Your divisiveness is hate. Maybe took it to another level. Appropriate or
Possibly.
not? Zerlina Maxwell.
Absolutely not. I think it's not even hate that I focus on, it's anger. And so there's a racial component to that I hear when I hear him call the first black president angry. I also think that the tone of the campaign and the tone of the Obama administration, you can't get to compromise without both sides making concessions. And Republicans came into office, or when Obama came into office, Republicans outright said, we don't want him to get a second term. We will do everything to block him. And so it's not necessarily that he is the one that's divisive. It's both sides are doing partisanship things at the same time.
We saw those clips, though, and it wasn't really President Obama, and it wasn't really as much Governor Romney, but their surrogates have been out there. And in the case of Barack Obama, his vice president and his deputy campaign manager. And there's a question about whether that takes this to another level. It's one thing,
the president or the presidential candidate, and I say this for somebody was in the Oval Office with President Clinton, and frankly, we didn't run a scorched earth campaign. We got a balanced budget agreement done with Newt Gingrich and the Republicans. But the president of the United States, the Republican nominee, can shut this kind of talk, these ads, down in a second by saying, stop it, by offering leadership, vision, consensus, and conciliation. And if you look at the record, there was progress in the 90s.
That's why
Look, I don't want to get back into a debate about what happened under President Clinton, but President Obama, this president, said when he was inaugurated that he was going to heal the partisan divides. Now, that may have been, a lofty aspiration. But is there any question about whether he has done that? I put it to you, Butch Yamali.
No, I don't think he has. I think the rift is that much bigger. I mean, we need a leader. We need somebody to give us some direction, to help us out. I'm a businessman in New York. I don't know where we're going. There's no leader. There's no nothing. It's just about partisan. Everybody has their, I mean, I'm not foolish. Everybody has their own agenda. But when you get elected to office, shouldn't you be a leader? Shouldn't you do your job? Shouldn't you do it for the people? I mean, we're not getting there.
I want to ask you, Brad Gerstmann, you're a Democrat, right?
Yes.
Has he healed the partisan divides?
Well, you know what? The partisan divide started way before just this campaign.
Of course it did.
Okay, it started the second the president took office.
My question to you is, President Obama said that he was going to, with humility, pull the red states and the blue states together and help heal the partisan divide.
If you look at the legislation,
and now it's got check time 4 years later to look back.
If you look at the legislation that he's proposed. He has gone to the Republicans. They've put their input into some legislation, including the health care legislation. And every single time he asked for that, excuse me, every single time he asked for that, every Republican stonewalled him when it came down to the vote.
So his point is that he has a right to be upset. He tried, but he was stonewalled, and now if he's angry because of that. Jay Townsend, I give it to you.
This is a symptom of a country that is deeply divided. I wish both would elevate the rhetoric a little bit, but I don't have a big hope for that between now and November. But you got half the people paying the taxes in the country and the other half that want them to pay more. You've got half the country that want to expand entitlements, and the other half saying we've had enough of this. You got 80 million baby boomers that want their piece of the Medicare pie, and they're afraid they're not going to get it. Furthermore, in this Congress, most members of Congress are far more vulnerable in a primary than they are in a general. Right. So they're always running to their base, ever afraid to creep too far toward the middle, toward compromise.
But this sort of back and forth, you mentioned the language, Carol Roth, the language, how does it make you feel when you hear this back and forth, that kind of back and forth between the president and Governor Romney? These two men, one's president, one wants to be.
Right, and I think that the issue here is, Megyn, is that the language that the leadership has been using has been about division, the middle class, the 1%, the wealthy, the 99. We're putting people in boxes, and the fact of the matter is we're all Americans. This isn't about the Democratic Party. It's not about the Republican Party. It's about Americans. So I would like to see the discourse elevated to say this isn't what the people want. I don't think any of us on this panel want to hear that back and forth.
Because you mentioned President Clinton. You worked for President Clinton. Well, there's maybe a belief that this is how politics, this has always been this way. Was it this cutting back then?
I spent 2 years with President Clinton. I can tell you we worked to get an agreement to do what Carol said, which was to bring people together, to talk about differences on issues, but ultimately work for compromise. Megyn, what we need now is leadership. Carol's right. Both candidates have to talk about a better future for all Americans, regardless of party.
So now, Rick, I want to go to Mary Walter on this. So Rick Warren cancels the Saddleback Forum. The Romney camp was quick to point out that they had actually never agreed to participate in this, and it was set to take place this week. So there's a question about whether there really was a forum that was about to take place and what exactly got canceled. But in any event, Pastor Warren tries to get the candidates together to have a civil discussion. He said, it's not going to happen this year. I mean, I think a lot of folks just felt sad that we're at the point now where this guy doesn't feel the two men can sit down across from each other and have a discussion that will elevate the debate. Go ahead, Mary Walter.
I think that those two men, I think Romney and Obama, can sit down in a forum together. But I agree with Jay that this country for the first time is at an ideological crossroads. You have one half of the country that wants to go towards a more socialist system, and the other half of the country that wants to stay with what we've always been and stay a capitalist system. And with social media and everything, you're not forced to listen to the other side anymore. You're on Facebook. You can just delete your friends or block your friends who don't agree with your point of view. So you get the same thing echoed back to you. So when you hear something you don't like, I think it becomes very divisive very quickly.
But is it more polarized this time around? Because, last time around it was very polarized. Right. Remember? I mean, it's not like it was little rainbows and unicorns between McCain and Obama. Go ahead again, Brad Gerstmann.
The ironic part of it all is that the people want progress. If you look at the statistics, you look at the polls, Congress's rating is about 12% or less. So people are just dissatisfied. Look at New York State. Things have moved forward because there's been reaching across party lines. They want it. So it's a question. The political parties want the divisiveness. The people want progress. And it's a question of who the political candidates are going to listen to in this next election.
But look at Chris, and you brought up New York. Chris Christie in New Jersey just signed a bill with the teachers union and had the head of the teachers union there with him. He's gotten budgets passed with both Democrats and Republicans. So I think it can be done. You just need someone who is willing to swallow their pride, and they need to say, okay,
I think you also need to recognize, though, that a large portion of the electorate wants leaders who are principled. And when you stand on principle, you are going to be divisive. You are going to inevitably make people angry and upset. And if you look back at the 2010 election season, a lot of those Tea Party candidates were elected because they were going to dig their heels in on these issues. That was the way. Right now we have the Tea Party.
I think a lot of people don't want compromise. But the question of tone is maybe a little different.
You can elevate the rhetoric and still present two very different visions of where you want this country to go. You can act like adults and not like children and still get your point.
I'm curious because we talked about Joe Biden earlier on the program earlier this week, and there's something lovable about the guy. Even if for you Republicans, do you think there's something lovable about him?
Love him having airtime, right?
But listen. Were you offended? Just show a hand. Were you offended by some of those comments you saw him make, in particular, our Vice President?
Sure.
You were, even Democrats. He doesn't get a pass just because he's sort of lovable Joe.
I love Joe, but he doesn't get a pass on that. He should have just used another word to describe the same thing.
You mentioned the race implication that you read into Romney's remarks about hate and anger. Did you see the same on what Joe Biden was saying about you're going to go back and change?
I think that, obviously change is not a word you should use when describing, what Wall Street has done, particularly in front of a black audience. But I also think that calling the first black president angry, I am black, obviously, and I just don't think that when I hear anger, I hear angry black man.
Can we change this? Is this the new reality? It's 2012. Look what's happened in our society. We've got the Kardashians. I know I keep ripping on them. My apologies, Kim. But I'm just saying, this is our society now, that we praise celebrity just for the sake of celebrity. We have all this terrible television that infects the society. Is this just reality in 2012? Kevin, go ahead.
To change. In the Second Continental Congress, one senator beat another one over the head with a cane and got hauled off to jail for a night because they were having a principled argument. The idea of advancing principles and what we believe in is what makes a representative republic work, and it's okay to disagree. We just need to be agreeable in doing it.
I think you also in business all the time.
I got to go quickly. I'll give you the last one.
Yeah, in business all the time, people negotiate. They have different interests and different positions. If they can come together in context, everyone wants America to be great.
That's important. Right. If you can speak to one another respectfully, like I always found in litigation, when you were arguing against the other side, it would lead to much better results than if it was all out, hate each other, war. In any event. Panel, thank you very much. A pleasure to see you. See how kind we are here. See you soon.
Thank you.